They say every royal mystery begins with a whisper. But this one started with a quiet crack, the kind that hides beneath polished smiles, glittering tiaras, and perfect palace photographs. For years, the world thought it knew Meghan Markle, the Hollywood girl who became a duchess, the actress who walked from a TV set straight into a fairy tale. But what if the fairy tale timeline isn't real? What if the story we've all been told about her age, her milestones, her perfect royal transformation is missing a few very important years? Tom Bower, the man who has spent years chasing royal secrets, says Meghan's story doesn't just bend a little, it snaps. Because when you start pulling at the soft corners of her past, threads start coming loose. Threads that lead to dusty papers, quiet voices, and memories from people who were actually there. It's not gossip, it's not fan theory, it's printed ink, faded photographs, and timelines that don't line up. And it all begins with a father who remembers things a little too clearly. Before the royal gates, before the millions of followers, Meghan Markle was just a daughter. Thomas Markle remembers her laughter echoing in their small home, her school plays, the smell of fresh paint on her stage sets, her birthdays, the exact years everything happened. And that's exactly why, when Meghan's story became famous, something started bothering him. It was like watching your own diary rewritten by a stranger. The public timeline, the one the world swallowed whole, didn't match what he lived through. Dates were shifted, ages adjusted, events swapped around. He didn't scream about it on TV. He didn't call for cameras. He just spoke softly like a father, still trying to understand how his little girl's life had been re-edited for the world to see. He hinted carefully, almost sadly, that Meghan's official birth year might not be as true as the palace press kits made it sound. Coming from a random source, it would have been dismissed. But coming from her father, the man who carried her in his arms and took her to school, those words hit differently. And then came the piece of evidence no one expected: something small, old, and nearly forgotten. March 1997, 17 magazine. Every teenage girl's Bible of fashion, lip gloss, and future dreams. Hidden on page 90 in a list of young participants, there it was, Meghan Markle, age 21. 21. Not 15, not 16. 21. Printed in ink, long before Prince Harry, long before Buckingham Palace, long before any publicist could curate her image. If that magazine was correct, then Meghan wasn't born in 1981. Her real birth year would fall closer to 1975 or 1976, making her around 6 years older than we all believed. And 6 years may sound small, but in the public eye, it changes everything. It shifts when she graduated, when she started acting, when she met Harry, and even her age when she became a mother. The world was told she was 36, a radiant, mid-30s woman marrying into royalty. But what if she was really in her 40s, playing a different part entirely? Suddenly, the fairy tale turns into a very different kind of story. That magazine didn't whisper, it shouted. And once it resurfaced, Meghan's official age became a living question mark, one that followed her through every red carpet, smile, and every royal event. But that was just the beginning. Because Tom Bower didn't stop at birthdays. His next discovery was far more personal and far more shocking. It surrounded one of the most emotional chapters in any woman's life, the birth of her child. According to Bower, even the story of Archie's birth, the one the palace shared with perfect lighting and flawless details, didn't line up behind the scenes. He didn't accuse, he didn't dramatize, he just laid out the facts, gathered quietly from people who were there. He suggested that the version of events told to the public sounded less like reality and more like a movie script. Think about it: a calm, candle-lit labor, 2 epidurals, a peaceful recovery, and a duchess glowing and home in 2 hours. It reads like a wellness ad, not a real delivery. Anyone who's ever given birth knows that's not how hospitals work. And that's when the most unexpected voice stepped forward, someone who had worked inside Portland Hospital itself, the very place Meghan supposedly gave birth. Not a gossip blogger, not a fan, a staff insider. Someone who actually knew how things happened behind those closed, expensive, heavily guarded doors. Their words changed everything. They said quite simply that the story told to the world didn't match reality. First, the 2 epidurals. That medically doesn't happen. Epidurals aren't doubled up like painkillers. You get one, and it runs continuously. The idea of receiving 2, as Harry claimed in his memoir, Spare, was described as medically impossible. Then came the timeline, the so-called 2-hour hospital stay. Anyone who's had or witnessed childbirth knows that's a fantasy. After an epidural, you can't even walk properly for several hours. You can't just hop off the bed, grab your baby, and drive home. Every mother is monitored. Blood pressure, heart rate, bleeding, mobility, all checked repeatedly. It's not just hospital protocol, it's survival protocol. Even under perfect conditions, it takes time. But somehow, according to the story, Meghan gave birth, recovered, got discharged, and drove nearly an hour to Frogmore Cottage, all inside 2 hours. Doctors called it logistically impossible. Yet, the official story remained untouched, calm, glowing, magical. The insider didn't claim a conspiracy. They didn't call her a liar. They just said softly, "That's not how it works here." And that one line, that quiet correction, deepened the mystery even further, because when you start comparing the medical facts with the royal narrative, things stop adding up. Every version of Meghan's motherhood story looks a little too edited, too smooth, too perfect. According to medical professionals, Meghan would have been classified as a geriatric mother, a harsh term that simply means over 35. It's not an insult. It's a medical category that requires extra observation and longer recovery time. But the version shared publicly? It showed none of that. Harry described dim lights, candles, birthing balls, and serenity. But that kind of spa-like setup doesn't happen with high-risk mothers. Hospitals don't dim the lights when they need to monitor vitals. They don't let candles burn near medical gases. And if Meghan truly faced early symptoms of preeclampsia, a serious, potentially life-threatening condition, as was hinted later, then the timeline becomes even more impossible. Preeclampsia demands magnesium drips, strict bed rest, and constant monitoring. You don't walk out of the hospital in 2 hours. So, what was the truth? Was it a case of protecting privacy? Or shaping a picture-perfect story? Because what the world received wasn't a medical account, it was a fairy tale. Every sentence, every photo, every carefully placed smile seemed designed to project ease, as if motherhood came without scars, sweat, or struggle. As if a duchess could simply breathe her baby into the world, step into a car, and wave at photographers 2 hours later. But the more Bauer and others dug, the clearer it became that both Meghan's age and her birth story carried the same fingerprints, rewritten details, trimmed edges, controlled narratives. Maybe it wasn't malicious. Maybe it was image management, the kind Hollywood perfects. But when it comes to royal history, truth always finds its cracks. Because there are records that don't lie, magazines that printed her age before PR existed, witnesses who remember years differently, hospital staff who know timelines that don't fit. And then, as Bauer says, there's that lingering question, the one no one wants to ask out loud. If the story of Archie's birth was shaped for perfection, what else might have been shaped the same way? Was the real Meghan the one born before the palace? Before the cameras slowly rewritten into a character the world could adore? A version younger, softer, and easier to sell? Because behind every headline, behind every elegant photo, there's a girl who once stood in her father's living room dreaming about Hollywood. And maybe that girl was older, wiser, and far more complex than the world was ever allowed to see. So now when people ask how old is Meghan Markle, the real question is no longer about numbers, it's about truth. About how far someone would go to protect an image or to build one. And the deeper you go, the louder the contradictions become. Old pages screaming from a 1997 magazine, quiet hospital whispers, a father's fading voice still saying, "That's not the timeline I remember. You can't unhear that, you can't unread it." Because when the truth hides behind fairy tales, it's only a matter of time before someone like Tom Bauer pulls the first thread. And once you pull one, the whole royal curtain begins to fall.